you official now, but you got a soul to save. I just been cooking that new. I'm about to drop in the few. Think if I call it the great, the people gon' call it the truth.
Bismillah Rahman Rahim, brothers and sisters all over. Wherever you're listening to us from, in the city of Chicago, you driving around, you listening to us on the World Wide Web. You have tuned in to WVON 1690, the Talk of Chicago. This is StraightWords. We come to you every Tuesday night, brothers and sisters, from 9 p.m. until midnight Central Time, giving you what you need. We can't wait to get on the air and talk to you about what's going on in the world. And, of course, we talk about the teachings of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. This show is Black Strong, unapologetically pro-Farrakhan. And let me introduce the staff to y'all, brothers and sisters out there. You got to know these two great men. And I was thinking about y'all today, bro. I wrote a script, but I left it in the other room. But I could memorize it. Brothers and sisters, let's open the show up with two great men, editors of the Final Call newspaper. One is the current, one is the former. And these brothers have been putting it down, pushing the word of God through the mind of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. I want to introduce y'all to my big brother. He's the former editor, now contributing editor of the Final Call newspaper, the great James G. Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Brother BJ, how you doing, my brother?
Brother, I'm doing well.
Great.
This brother right here is the editor-in-chief of the Final Call newspaper. This brother is powerful, unrelenting, uncompromising. I'm talking about Brother Naba'a Richard Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum, big brother.
Wa alaikum salam, Brother BJ. Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. And my hope is to be all of those things as I aspire to try to live up to the great knowledge, opportunity, love that's been placed in my heart by this man, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan.
Amen.
And the most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum, Brother James, as well.
Wa alaikum salam, sir.
So, brother,
yes,
but I wanna say from the outset, and we've always made this clear in every broadcast, I am not a spokesperson for the Nation of Islam, nor Minister Farrakhan. This is not a Nation of Islam production. This is not funded by the Nation of Islam. This is a private venture that Brother James and Brother BJ and I have embarked upon because we want to be strong witness bearers to the man who has impacted our lives. We want to be witness bearers to him and to the truth about him, right? So, brothers and sisters, we got an interesting conversation tonight, and I thank my brother James Muhammad for giving me that word, because I think that's what we want. It may become a intense conversation at times, but I don't think it's nothing we can handle if we simply take a moment and reason together. So the subject of this is Farrakhan can't speak for black folk? ? This begins with a long-standing feud between Uncle Luke Campbell and Tariq Nasheed of the Foundational Black Americans, which is a group that's seeking reparations for black folk based on their lineage. There's another group, Yvette Carnell. We will have her voice speaking in her own voice, taking questions from Luther Campbell in a Twitter space that he held August 25th of this year. Yvette Carnell is the creator of ADOS, ADOS, African Descendants of Slavery. Both of these groups, over the last, I guess, eight years now, I think. Well, as Yvette Carnell said, her group is older than Tariq Nasheed's group. foundational Black Americans. But at any rate, these groups have really helped to raise awareness about reparations and having our people stand up for reparations. There's really no doubt about that, even if the majority of our people may not know of these two groups, they have really raised the profile and discussion about reparations among us. So we begin with a long-standing feud between Uncle Luke Campbell and Tariq Nasheed of the foundational Black Americans. It kind of begins when Uncle Luke posts a video clip where Kamala Harris is called a Black woman by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. But the clip is from several years ago, and the minister was describing growing white anger as we rise. And the open enemy sees signs of us coming into power, not as vassals, not as tools, and slaves to America, but rising in our own nation. The minister has said nothing about Vice President Harris. He just hasn't. So in essence, it is wrong to take the minister's words out of context. He speaks straight words, and we all should strive to keep them in context, even when we want to prove a point. So the point that Luther Campbell was trying to make is that within the foundational Black Americans and the ADOS movements, there's really been a rejection of Africans and Caribbean immigrants. Adherents to these movements say that's because Blacks have a special place in this country. Black Americans who were descended from our ancestors that were enslaved, they hold a specific place, and reparations should be for them. And they are now claiming that as their identity, which is rather interesting. This delineation, and on their part, calls for reparations for these people only. The foundational Black Americans have often used the insulting term tether to insult or diminish other Black people, and discussions have often taken a very ugly turn. There's now a video circulating among that group that's called Grinding for a Green Card, and it depicts an African kind of cavorting with white women to get a green card to America. So Luther Campbell asked in a Twitter space hosted August 25th if Black immigrants are tethers. And Kamala Harris is a tether because her father is from Jamaica and her mother is from India, right? If it's true of these two, well, if it is true of her, the child of immigrants, why isn't Minister Farrakhan? This is Uncle Luke asking this question. This is Uncle Luke. And Uncle Luke, or Luther Campbell, by the way, his parents are from the Caribbean. Of course, he's born and raised in Florida. Luther Campbell is also an unapologetic and very strong supporter of Kamala Harris, right? So there's been some who have said she's not Black. He has bristled at that and what he sees as Black folk dividing Black folk. So Luther Campbell asked this question. If Kamala Harris is a tether, then why isn't Minister Farrakhan, whose mother was from St. Kitts and father was from Jamaica? Why not Malcolm X, whose father was born in America and his mother from Grenada? Why are these two men also quote unquote tethers? This is Luther Campbell asking this question. So this encounter and this subject, which hasn't been raised for the first time, brought a really, I think, significant response on Twitter, where the minister was trending at one point, right? Some people were responding to the mistaken belief and wrong belief that the minister was taking a position on Kamala Harris and he was speaking today. That's wrong, brothers and sisters. And when you see anything from the minister, or really from anyone, I really encourage you to look for the full presentation, okay? So that you can hear from that person what was said before and what was said after and what their intention was. But this set off kind of a firestorm with some, not all, FBA and ADOS adherents calling the minister a tether, literally, saying he can't speak for the American descendants of slavery, some in that ADOS movement and among foundational Black Americans. They also called the minister and the Nation of Islam ops, or enemies among Black people. Now, Black folk who love the minister responded with great love, defenses, history of the minister, and, a good amount of cussing, because they didn't appreciate it. Not at all. And even some ADOS and FBAs responded with love and respect for the minister and condemned the ugliness and the lies, right? So to me, it sounds like Cointelpro 2024. But we should always remember it is not just what the enemy does, but how we respond. So perhaps this little conversation can serve as some way to give our listeners something to consider. And again, StraightWords is a private broadcast. It is the property of Brother Naba'a, Brother BJ, and Brother James. We don't speak for the Nation of Islam. We're not official spokesmen for the minister. That's why you've heard me on this. You've heard me on this broadcast. When people ask certain questions, you've heard me tell them, you need to direct that to the officials at Mosque Mariam, 7351 South Stony Island Avenue, if you don't know where it's at, right? So again, we have seen some, not all, who declare themselves to be foundational Black Americans and American descendants of slavery, attacking a man who was above reproach. Character outstanding, commitment flawless, character sterling, love and compassion, superhuman, not just human. But a man who is not above criticism, if you want to make an argument over something that you disagree with or a point you'd like to discuss. That's allowed, but it should be far above the slander, the malicious disrespect, the lies, and the false charges some have lobbed at Minister Farrakhan, and it leaves me to speak. I'm just speaking for me. That maybe you don't quite see clearly, or maybe you still suffer from the leprous-minded disease of white supremacy. If you would say such against a man who is your true brother and friend and is working and raising and sacrificing and dying a little every day to raise a nation for your benefit, you don't have to accept or believe the promise of the Black man's God. You are free to do as you wish. And if you want to believe in and appeal to those who raped, mutilated, tortured, starved, beat, castrated, branded at the stake, burned us at the stake, lynched us, and who shoot us down in the street with very few consequences. In your former slave master's criminal and justice system, if you wish to have hope in them, that's your choice. I'm not going to argue with you, and we're not allowed to argue with you. John Elijah Muhammad said the truth is so plain, even a fool can understand it. Mm-hmm. But certainly what we have seen on Twitter and other places has COINTEL vibes written all over it. Not different than past government plots to pit us against one another, to disrupt and discredit our efforts to get free and to prevent the rise of a black messiah who can electrify and unite the masses, and especially our young people. It was the FBI mainly, but also local and state agencies plotted and manipulated, armed, and killed or had us killed. Their agents did. Right. Literally kill one another in the 1960s and early 70s. They say it was disbanded, but was it? According to the Guardian newspaper, and this is the headline, the FBI has a history of targeting black activists that's still true today. The FBI has long disrupted and discredited civil rights leaders. It should put its authorities to better use by holding police officers accountable. This was an opinion piece published in the UK Guardian. It was written by Mike German, and it was published July 26, 2020, I believe, 2020, about 4 years ago, right? Quote, I'm quoting from Mr. German now. The FBI COINTELPRO program targeting civil rights leaders like Dr. Martin Luther King and Stokely Carmichael was specifically designed to prevent the rise of a black messiah who could unify and electrify the militant black nationalist movement, rather than to prevent any violent acts they may perpetrate. Now, check that out. They weren't worried about violence. They were worried about unity. Back to Mr. German. The methods included informant-driven disinformation campaigns. What? Informant-driven disinformation campaigns designed to spark conflict within the movement, discourage donors and suppliers, and even break up marriages. Overt investigative activity was also used as one stated goal of the COINTELPRO program was to inspire fear among activists by convincing them that an FBI agent lurks behind every mailbox. Again, continuing from Mr. German. Stay with me, y'all. Exposure of the COINTELPRO abuses led to an era of reform starting in 1976, including guidelines issued by the Attorney General Ed Levy to limit FBI investigations of political activity by requiring a reasonable indication of criminal activity before intrusive investigations could be launched. Unfortunately, please listen to this now. Unfortunately, the guidelines were weakened over time. Most severely in 2008 by the Bush administration Attorney General Michael Mukasey. Mukasey's guidelines authorized a new type of investigation called an assessment, which required no factual basis for suspecting individualized wrongdoing before agents could employ intrusive investigative techniques such as overt and covert interviews, physical surveillance, government and commercial database searches, recruiting, and tasking informants. The FBI interpreted these guidelines to allow its agents to use census data to map American communities by race and ethnicity and to monitor, quote, ethnic facilities and quote, unquote, behavior. A 2009 memo from the Atlanta FBI cited fears of a black terrorism threat to justify opening an assessment that documented the growth of the black population in Georgia. So it wasn't surprising, listen carefully, listen. So it was not surprising when a new generation of political activists started the Black Lives Matter movement to protest police violence after the fatal 2014 shooting of unarmed teenager Mike Brown in Ferguson, Missouri. The FBI began tracking them all across the country, using its authority to conduct months-long investigations. Black Lives Matter activists reported that FBI agents had contacted them at home to warn them against attending the 2016 Republican National Convention. By 2017, the FBI had invented a new domestic terrorism category it called the Black Identity Extremism Movement. An FBI intelligence report cited 6 unrelated incidents over a 3-year period in which black subjects not associated with one another attacked police officers to allege that a terrorist movement driven by, quote, perceptions of police brutality against, unquote, African Americans existed. So in 2018 and 2019, the FBI conducted nationwide assessments of black identity extremists under an intelligence collection operation it called Open Fist, prioritizing these cases over investigations of far more prevalent violence from white supremacists and far-right militants over that period, including mass shootings at a Pittsburgh synagogue and an El Paso shopping mall. This will be my last sentence. The FBI also acknowledged using its most advanced surveillance aircraft to monitor Black Lives Matter protests in Baltimore after the police killing of Freddie Gray in 2018. And again this month, this was again July, I believe, 2020, at the BLM protest in Washington, D.C. I'm going to stop there because I think you get the point. So our conversation is a conversation. It's not war talk. This is looking at the history and the open enemy always at work.
Right.
As a Muslim, I'm forbidden to threaten and commit acts of violence on other people, except that I'm defending myself.
Right.
See, that's the way of your enemy to attack and kill people that they don't agree with. Look at all the assassinations or who they see as a threat. Look at all they have assassinated, right? So when you look at the Nation of Islam, you have a history of peacemaking. That's why people love us, and the man who taught and trained us, who molded us, shaped us, and gave us an incredible model to follow. That man is the Honorable that man is Minister Farrakhan. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad also taught Muslims to criticize, program imposition, and not engage in personal attacks. That is a powerful principle. Now, on some of these posts, right? And at one point, the minister was springing last week, right? Mm-hmm. Some of these posts, and we don't know who's posting, right? Ask, why is Minister Farrakhan still alive? I'll say this. Well, he's like his teacher, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who the enemy could not kill and who departed in 1975. A true and living God protects the minister and the nation today, or do you think the white man is God and nothing happens without the white man's permission? Emphatically not. Why don't you learn about and consider following the God of the Nation of Islam? Or do you really not believe in a divine supreme being despite what you say? The minister says God is backing him and he moves like God is backing him, making him a tremendous leader and divine servant for us. So our identity, so to speak, is not defined where the enemy dropped us off as he sought to work us to death, but as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches, we are the original people of the planet.
Come on, man.
We are a majority on the planet, and we have black folk everywhere, from the so-called Dalits in India who are black to the Aboriginals in Australia and all in between. So our origin story doesn't begin in captivity under the enemy. It stems back to God himself, who originated the heavens and the earth. And we are black because he came out of the dark womb of space and triple blackness, so that became his color and since ours. But actually blackness, as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches,
It's not a color.
Is not a color. It is the essence of color. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught we are living in the time of black universal rise, where the darker people of the planet are moving for self-determination, and we will not be unsuccessful. Let me say that, brothers and sisters. And to the enemy, if you're listening, you will not be successful in stopping us. Nothing will stop our rise and ascension into world leadership. Take it alone. Now, blacks, reparations, and slavery. Check this out. Much of what we have seen are calls for blacks to receive reparations for slavery and acknowledgement of the special place blacks hold in this country because we were enslaved. But it's much bigger than that. Our suffering, as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches, was divinely decreed for us to go into slavery in fulfillment of the biblical prophecy of Abraham, where it says that Abraham's seed would go into slavery and be afflicted by a strange land and under a strange people, and after 400 years in bondage. After that time, God himself would come to deliver that people and judge the nation that they serve. That God would choose this despised and rejected people as his own. That's us. That's and the mighty one who came was Master Farad Muhammad, the long-awaited Messiah of the Christians, and the Mahdi of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who raised this black nation in the West, and we are nearly 100 years in our mission. As a Muslim, I'm devoted to giving our people these divine truths and others to remove the blinding touch of Satan. You have no better friend, brothers and sisters, than the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who was authorized by God himself, because the solution to our problem in America is not just reparations, but separation into a state or territory of our own. It doesn't get much blacker than that, because many who were and are revolutionary want to integrate with the slave master, and they believe in him, and somehow they think they can reform him. Some believe the white man will give reparations simply because they ask or demand, but what power do you have to enforce your demand when neither the Democrats nor the Republicans are for reparations? But the God of the Nation of Islam can and will deliver on his promise. And you are watching the end of the enemy's world unraveling, as the Honorable Minister Farrakhan has told and taught us. Unraveling before your eyes, so much so that there's much concern and doubt that America will literally survive, and I'm using literally in the proper sense now, the 2024 presidential and national election. The minister sits as the father over the house, over black people in America and elsewhere, and he was authorized by Allah's great servant, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, to speak to and for the whole of our people. You hear me?
Come on.
Authorized by Allah's great servant, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, to speak to and for the whole of our people. So these Cointelpro style attacks or campaigns, and unfortunately, perhaps self-hating, self-loathing people with grossly misinformed attacks on the minister, with some calling him by the derogatory term tether. It's a slur against our brothers and sisters in America, from America and the Caribbean. And whether it is the enemy hiding behind computers, laptops, tablets, and phones, which is sadly the misguided, deaf, dumb, and blind, as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad described us, who are saying these things, it is the enemy who benefits from our division. The words would be laughable if they weren't so insulting. The minister can't speak for black people because he is not a descendant of American slaves. Certainly, you would not call the minister's beloved mother by that term. A woman who was from St. Kitts on the fringe of the Garvey movement, but she fed his mind on the black struggle, having him read Crisis magazine. So from a young child, he loved the black people and longed to see us free. And as we know, his father was from Jamaica. Well, brothers and sisters, look, did you know that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad tested the minister on his quote-unquote, not my language, not the minister's, Caribbean roots, and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad mocked the minister and his people from the islands. And the trial was so painful and severe, it brought the minister to tears. But in his next lecture, the minister talked about the black man in America, and that if he could not go into the new reality, he would be honored to put the black man on his shoulders to carry him into the promise of God. What manner is this? What manner of man is this? So these kind of tribal alliances, the minister is far, far, far above that. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad saw that. So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad left the minister in charge over the house and black people in America. And our people the world over love him because he loves, defends, teaches, heals, and restores us by God's power and permission while laying into the enemy at our door who still seeks to destroy us. You have no one comparable to him and no greater champion, leader, teacher, divine God, divine guide, and example. Well, we got about, 14 minutes? So, Brother Anthony, you can we got Brother Anthony Shaheed on the line. We got any callers, anybody? No?
No, sir. We got Art on. Okay, Art's on, sir.
So, Brother Anthony, we'll take you in a minute, but I want all the callers to stick to the subject at hand tonight. This is what we're discussing, this subject right here. So we're asking you to join the conversation, which is about this subject. We're not dealing with anything else tonight. Let's go.
Yes, sir. All right, Brother Art, you're on StraightWords on WBON. Go ahead and talk to us, brother.
Hey, how are you all this evening? I have a question. We have 17 communities. They say it's the worst communities that black people currently operate in and reside in. And I hear we speak about separation. Aren't we already separated? And
we are separated. We are separated. But we're in an inferior position imposed on us that is called segregation. See, when two people get married and it's over, what do? They get a separation, and then they eventually get a divorce. Segregation is when your enemy puts you in conditions that he creates to keep you under stress, under oppression, and for him to benefit and suck the excuse me.
All right, so let me respond.
Out of your community.
Let me respond to that. So here would be the question I'll ask you. How is it some of our leaders, teachers, guides, and those who have organization, why are they able to overcome racism and white supremacy, and they're able to live in beautiful homes, drive beautiful cars, their children go to great schools, they don't live in the community, and they live everywhere else? How are they able to overcome all of these isms, and their followers or the people they're supposed to be leading, somehow they're not able to overcome, but they have overcame that same racism, and they're doing extremely well. All of them. I'm talking about preachers, teachers, guys, potentates, whatever you want to call them. They live great. Okay. Their children live great. I will hang up, and I would like to know how they're able to overcome racism.
Absolutely.
And their followers.
Thank you for your call. Thank you for your call. I can't speak to nobody but the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And his followers are overcoming. And the Holy Quran says to us as Muslims, hard trials are necessary to establish the truth. This man has over 70 years of service. So what he gets by the permission of Allah, and he don't keep it to himself. If you go to the minister's farm in Michigan, if you're ever blessed to have that honor, it's not a huge place, brothers and sisters. Celebrities, entertainers, and others have much bigger places. But it is a place of reflection. It is a place of meeting. It is an agricultural laboratory. It is following in the example of the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So the minister is doing it because he follows the black man's God and the man we believe to be the exalted Christ, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. See, when God is with you, truly no one can stand against you in a matter. And I'm proud to say in 37 years, I've given thousands of dollars to the minister. Let me be clear, because he deserves that and more.
That's right.
The man was fighting for me before I was even born. Did you hear what I said?
Come on.
The man was fighting for me before I was even born. I could tell you some personal stuff, but to me that would be so petty, man. What he has done for me, what he has done for plenty others out here. Paid for funerals, paid for people to have somewhere to stay, paid for lawyers. So this is the day of our rise. Healthcare. And we are determined to rise, and Master Fard Muhammad, the great God, the Messiah, the Mahdi of the Muslims, and the Messiah of the Christians, is with us. That's all I can speak to. You got to call some of them people you mentioned and ask them themselves.
We got Brother Cliff on. Brother Cliff, you were on WBON on StraightWords.
Assalamu alaikum, brothers. I'll get right to the point. I know we're all on time. Listen, all I simply say, as a Christian, I was brought up and raised in a black church. Father was a pastor, so I've been all accustomed to that. You know, and Brother Art makes some good points in terms of the pastors, but he included my father, even though he was involved in civil rights and he understood the racism that exists. But what happens is that when he was in the church and he was speaking to that, a lot of the people, a lot of the congregation, man, felt uncomfortable. So he had to cater to pretty much the congregation, you know, and talk to Lily, you know, the safe thing, which is just trusting God. You know, everything's going to be okay. You know, so I was brought up and raised in that. However, living in a white neighborhood, man, I experienced racism every day. You know, it got to the point where I thought my name was the N-word because I was being called nigger, man, so many times. Excuse my expression. I apologize if I can't use that word, but I won't use it again. I'll just use the N-word. And so I would ask my dad, you know, Dad, why are we dealing with this? Why, you know, God is made us all equal, so why are we still being discriminated against in the whole 9 yards? And I couldn't get this from all preachers. You know what I mean? And the only one that spoke maybe partially truth, man, was, you know, Martin Luther King, and in his speeches and in his preaching, which a lot of white Americans don't expose, is that, you know, Dr. King talked about the whole challenge of racism, discrimination in this country. But a lot of people focus on, and here's my point, a lot of people focus on the love. You got to love your enemy, pray for your enemy. And it just didn't make sense to me. And so finally I heard some speaking coming from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And let me say this, brother, when you hear truth, that issue resonates within your soul, in your spirit. I don't care what religion you practice. You know what I'm saying? When you hear truth, it just does something to you. I'm like, yo, bro, whoever this dude is, this brother is speaking truth to my experience and was speaking on the white racism. And then the white God, the white Jesus, man, everything was white, bro. And trust me, with my whole evaluation, man, I was like, yo, throughout history, there's only one person that speaks truth to and makes that, listen, and he makes a sacrifice. He says, I remember Mr. Louis Farrakhan is living good, in which he deserves to live good, right? And the people, the black people are taking care of him. You know, you're supposed to do that. But the thing is that, man, he has the courage to challenge the white man, the enemy, without fear. A lot of our black leaders, to our point, had fear. You know, and even to the point, man, where our own community with the self-hatred, man, I couldn't understand it. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, man, spoke to all that So in closing, all I'm simply saying is that listen to this morning, right, to our brother Rufus. He had a guest, and it was a white boy, and he was speaking on the rise of these white militia groups that are rising. And brother, the only thing I can say is that, and you and I, we go, brothers, we go back and forth because what's happening right now in our black community is that our youth are so misguided. The killings. I just saw down in L.A. a footage, man, on YouTube where they were shooting at a funeral. And this is what we do. And so they made the comments that we have been so misguided. You know what I'm saying? Where we're killing each other, we're killing ourselves. And then, of course, once that's done, then here comes the white man. They're going to finish this off. So when the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan talks about white racism, Brother Art, he has a right to. Nobody else is speaking on this. And it's truth. Nobody else is speaking on what's happening to us and the agenda that's coming forward. Project 2025, all that, brother. So all I'm simply saying, man, is in closing that I'm thankful for the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And let me say this. I do believe that from a spiritual standpoint, God uses divine people to get a message to us, to warn us, to guide us, and that's him. I can't find nobody else on a national level to do that, so I get offended with anybody says anything. And I'm not even a member, but I get offended, man, because he stuck his life out. And I'll give you my last point. What made it, and I trusted him, and I'll give you an example of how I trust him, because when that COVID came in, right, when that COVID hit, all black preachers under the influence of white Democrats were telling the congregation, take the vaccine. It was something in my heart. I just didn't feel comfortable. I said, let me hear what the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan would say. And the brother man spoke truth. He said, don't take that vaccine. I trusted him. I didn't. Even when I had a separation in my own family as Christians, you know what I'm saying? I trusted the Honorable Minister Louis. He had a history for the love of black people. Why would he tell us to do anything else to kill us when all his life he's been saving us? So I end with that. I'll stop with
Thank you, brother.
So, brothers and sisters, I hope you're enjoying how the conversation is starting off and how it's moving. And again, I thank my brother James G. Muhammad for giving me that word and that thought, conversation. Let me tell you something, brothers and sisters. There's nothing like a good brother, man.
That's right.
Nothing like a good brother. Well, brother, we're going to take a break in a minute. When we come back, Brother Anthony Shaheed and Brother Ajuma from St. Louis are going to join us, and we want you to call in at 773-591-1690 and join the conversation. Brother BJ, you know what we need,
right?
Right? And we really need that.
That's right. We need some funds, brother. We need some funds. So, brothers and sisters, for the past hour, we've been listening to our brother give a wonderful defense of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Brother James D. Brother James D. can chime in too, and the other brother. So there's not a place you can go in this country on the radio that you can hear this kind of talk, brother. We black strong, unapologetically pro Farrakhan, as you hear, and just like he said, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is teaching us to be fearless like him, to remove fear from us so that we can go out and challenge the forces that keep our people held in bondage, brothers and sisters. So help us continue to give this powerful word. There's somebody out there listening, and they're saying, brother, I'm so thankful that I can hear something like this to nourish and water my spirit so I can get out here and keep fighting. It's StraightWords, brothers and sisters. StraightWords is the name of our program. And you can go to our website, StraightWords.com, StraightWords.com. We got information on how you can help us financially, because we need your support to stay on the air week after week to keep giving you this powerful truth, and we ain't going to stop. We got a major election coming up, and you need to hear an alternative voice to the mainstream media, what's going on, especially in the black media. So keep it right here on WVON 1690, the Talk of Chicago. Go to StraightWords right now. Go to the website, make a donation, and help your brothers and sisters keep hearing this truth. You're listening to StraightWords, Brother Naba'a Richard Muhammad, Brother James G. Muhammad. I'm Brother BJ. We're going to be back with our special guest and more of your phone calls at 773-591-1690. 591-1690. This is the Talk of Chicago, WVON.
The Talk of Chicago and the voice of the nation is 1690 WVON, Berwyn, Chicago.
I'm Terry McCready.
And I'm Kevin Brown on your home for 24/7 News, the Black Information Network.
President Biden making his first joint appearance on the